Hello, everyone. Hello,
Hi.
Einstein.
Oh, this is cool. First live show of NADA, the Nordic Cardano community.
Yep. This is going to be fun. It's going to be new. It's going to be interesting. And I think the topic that we're going to talk about today is going to be it's going to be a lot. As most of you might already know, Masari, I do believe it is. Let's see, just so I don't say anything wrong. Yes, so the report that we're going to go through today has been commissioned by Input Output, but all the content has been produced independently by the authors and do not necessarily reflect the opinion of Masari. So this is an independent contract commissioned by Input Output, but it is a report named State of Cardano Q2. So basically what it does is to have a deep look into what's been going on in the Cardano ecosystem for the last 3 months, comparing it with earlier quarters and years, and sharing the results. Do you have anything to add to that, Aystein?
Well, we probably should have it on one of the screens when we go through it. But in general, like Masari is a well-respected research company and analytic company. And yeah, they have hired Red Sheehan, and it's 2 days ago this report was out. So that's why I think it's fairly interesting to go through it. This data is fairly fresh. And there's a lot of interesting segments there. And one of the main things that Tamara Hassan even retweeted was the increase in total value locked, or TVL. We need to have a bit careful when we talk about total value locked, because how you actually count this total value locked is important. For example, you could argue that stake in itself is something that's total value locked, but in Cardano it's liquid, so it's not counted as something that's locked up in DeFi apps, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So I think
yeah,
we could just jump right in. It's quite a long report. It's about a 16-minute read for those who want to read it. The link is in the description. But yeah, I think we should just jump right in. So if we just start at the top and work our way down, key insights basically is a summary, quick summary of what's happening down below. And I think the average daily DApp transactions were up by 49% quarter over quarter. That's a big growth. That is a massive growth. And MinSwap has by far the largest of these, and has actually toppled JPEG as the biggest DApp on Cardano. And as I said, touched upon, TVL was up 9.7% and 198% year to date. So yeah, you just jump in when you want to, Aystein.
Yeah, let me add to 2 points for this first part. So this was basically still during the meme coin craze on Cardano. So I think it's natural we will see an increase in the dexes in particular, and the MinSwap has some of the highest volume of the dexes on Cardano. But also I would like to point out that we also saw some very interesting DeFi products. We saw the start of lending of NFTs. We saw this many new stable coins got traction. So I think this growth is actually sustainable. Maybe not the 50% growth quarter over quarter going forward, but definitely there is traction, and it's not just the meme coin craze, but it's important to note that because it's not mentioned by MSR.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you
Looks
had
like my
one more
camera
slide.
froze, so maybe you can take the picture off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Thanks.
There we go.
Yeah. And for the
Okay.
total value locked, maybe we should say something there. It's a necessity when total value locked on Cardano goes up. It also means that total stake goes down, because either you're using it for staking or you're locking it up in a DeFi.
Yeah.
And we will see later that staking percentage is going down. That means better rewards for the people still staking. I want to point out one last fact there is that there are some protocols now working on DeFi that will actually stake through a smart contract. So you can both be value locked and staked in the future. So that's going to be interesting moving forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Then the report also talks quite a bit about Hydra and Hydra head development. Continued with proposed apologies, interest from ecosystem teams, and a demo shared. Personally, I've not seen the demo yet. I know you have.
Um, Well, there's a few things there. Like there's a running joke in the Cardano community that Hydra fixes it. Like it is supposed to be the solution for everything, but we say that in a very humble way because what we really mean is that it's a layer 2 solution that has some things that will help increase transaction volumes on, but it's not going to be the solution for everything. And I have seen a demo of it working with 3 state channels, and one of the technical difficulties they have currently is like to scale it that there's many Hydra heads. So when you reach like let's say for example 10, 20 heads communicating with each other, it starts to become a bit problematic currently. So I would say it's a young technology, but it's definitely moving forward. And as we'll see later in this report, like we need it when the transaction volumes are so high that the main chain is basically took all of the capacity of the main chain. That's when we really need Hydra.
Yeah. Let's see, and also they touch upon side chains, Milkomida, Midnight, One Chain, and IOG's sidechain team continues to build towards increased interoperability and new use cases in the greater Cardano ecosystem. We're going to touch a little bit upon that later on. Then the report talks about a primer on Cardano. I don't know. We're not going to spend any time on this. This is
It's a funny
basically
curiosity there. They believe DC Spark is one of the founding entities.
yeah.
But
Well, it says that it's supported by multiple entities.
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, there's many other entities, but it's not one
Yeah.
of the 3 original. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're not going to spend any time about this. This is basically just saying what Cardano is, and we know this already. Then for the key metrics, they have some interesting data. Let's see if
Absolutely.
there we go. So if we look at the average daily average daily active addresses, quarter 2 had 57,821, which is down from 60,200. The average daily transactions, however, is up by 1.9%, up from 67.4 to 68.7. And so even though there are less active addresses, the daily transactions has gone up. And this probably comes down to the meme coin craze by a large chunk.
I
Other
would,
than that, yeah.
I would also say like one thing Masari needs to do in their analytics is to think also about efficiency of Cardano, because the ecosystem is trying to push as much into each block, into each transaction. So actually, we see a trend where the blocks are more full, and it's when you are an outsider doing analytics on this, maybe you think that we have less transaction and less activity, but if you also at the same time see that the block size is increasing and actually becoming more and more full, that means that we're actually having more activity. And
Yeah.
this is important. It's not an apples to apples comparison, so this is something to keep in mind. But I agree with you. I think we saw an increase in activity from the meme coins and from the stable coins and from this new DeFi activity in total.
Yeah, I think that's where most of the increase comes from. Yeah, and then ADA price, we ended the quarter at 0.28, giving us a 9.7 billion circulating market caps with a real yield of 3.28%. What is I think the total value locked is interesting to have a quick look at. Quarter two, there was we had a big we had a lot of value left, and then it went down, but it's gone up again, and we are now the past 2 quarters we've been above above quarter two 22. So we're seeing a constant increase in total value locked 4 out of 5 months quarters, I mean, in this report shows an increase, and that is really great. I can also see that the NFT trading volume has gone significantly down. Yeah,
In US dollars.
in
Gone.
US dollars, yes.
And
yeah, and we have active stake of 22.7 billion ADA. See, I'm not sure if the report says anything about the percentage of ADA being staked. I don't know if you have any recent numbers on that, Eystein.
it was around 60 to 70% last time I checked, and
Yeah.
I think there's a few causes here that we should be aware of. Like for a while, Binance moved a lot of stake during the initial court case. I believe they have put some of it back, but maybe some of it was counted as not staked. And there is a general trend that less is getting staked because more are moving to DeFi. And in total, this is good for the ones who are staked because then the rewards are higher. And it's interesting them using the term real yield, and that's a very important thing because that accounts for the inflation, because Cardano is still printing ADA. It's not yet 45 billion ADA. So this is the actual number including the inflation. And as we see, it's moving up. So I think this is a highlight for me personally. Like, to be staking ADA now, it's never been as profitable as it is now. The real yield is higher than it has been before. That's an important thing to know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. And then they moved over to a performance analysis. Oi. And they just put up a note above it. It says that Cardano uses a variety of UTXO, like Bitcoin. They say, I wouldn't say like Bitcoin, but it's a lot different from how Bitcoin does it. But yeah, okay. Activity metrics, such as those involving addresses and transfers, are fundamentally different from those on networks with account-based accounting models, for example, Ethereum and Solana. And the network overview shows an average daily active addresses. This we touched upon this already. But the active addresses are, for the most part, going down.
I think that's natural. Currently, it's quite the bear market, and not everyone is checking their wallets during one quarter. But
yeah. This trend is basically happening all across the crypto space, regardless of what chain you're on. Average daily new addresses. I really don't understand this one.
Yeah, me neither.
We have not had a decrease in average daily new addresses. I know that for a fact.
That is something we should investigate further, because I also agree. The material I have seen is actually increased the number of addresses. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen the same thing. I've seen an increase of I've seen different numbers, but between 1 and 3,000 daily new addresses is what I've been seeing. So I'm not quite sure how they got to minus 39. Seems we are losing new addresses. Doesn't make sense to me.
No,
but we can dig into that later, and maybe we can post something on that on Twitter or something.
Yeah.
Total addresses 4.4 million. And we have an average daily transactions of 68,700. Average transaction fee is it's staying low as it should, and transaction to address ratio 1.19, which is not that interesting, at least for me. What I think is really interesting is this graph here, because this is not common on every blockchain. Active addresses and transactions are tightly coupled. So if you look at this, the blue graph shows active addresses, and the purple graph shows transactions. So there is a clear correlation between active addresses and the number of transactions. This tells me that to me this shows. This is one metric of telling how decentralized a blockchain is. And this is a really good indication of how decentralized it is. If you see few active addresses, if you see a big gap, between active addresses and transactions, it could mean that it's more or less decentralized. If it's a good correlation here, that basically just says it's a good balance.
I really love that you use this as a metric for decentralization, and we could even frame it something like activity decentralization, because we have some chains who are doing like a few addresses and they are doing a ton of trades,
Yep.
and then the volume total is very high, but these are not as these are not as decentralized in activity. So yeah, that's a really good point, Thomas. I think this
Yeah.
is something again we should highlight if you're doing a deep dive.
Yeah, sure. We can we can dive into that more at a later stage. And then it says that the various growing niches on Cardano, such as DeFi, have not been enough to increase overall activity metrics. Daily active addresses declined again in Q2, down 4% quarter-over-quarter. This marks the fourth quarter-over-quarter decrease in address activity in the past 5 quarters. Again, we've been in a bear market now for quite a while. This is normal. This is nothing new. This is happening all across the board. This is has nothing to do with anything on Cardano. This is just a market, as far as I can tell. Transaction activity, on the other hand, did increase in Q2. Average daily transactions were up 1.9%, as we saw earlier. This is important to note, as movement in transactions and active addresses are typically correlated, but have deviated slightly in recent quarters. Cardano's average blockchain load increased from just over 40% in Q1 to over 50% in Q2. Average daily load peaked at 81.2% in May. That's not been seen since early 2022.
Here's an important point. So the extended UTXO of Cardano basically has many transactions in each block. And when they
Yep.
say that transactions are down, let's say it was a small percentage, and we see here actually the blocks now are almost 100% more full, from 40 to 80%. That means we actually had a massive increase in activity. So
Yeah.
this is something some of this report should highlight more, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Just looking at the blocks, the block numbers do not give a good indication on activity alone. It is one metric, but it's not the only one you need to look at to get the full picture.
Exactly.
So, financial overview. Ether price closed the quarter at 0.28. We're up a little bit since then. We all know what's been going on in the market, so nothing new here. Circulating market cap, 9.7 billion. Fully diluted market cap, 12.4. Circulating supply, 35.1 billion. And that's just like you said, it's we're not yet at 45 billion, which is the cap. And it's gonna increase, of course, until then. We had a quarterly revenue of $788,290. The treasury balance has gone up in ADA value, has gone down in dollar value from the last quarter. And the real yield is 3.28. We touched upon that earlier.
Yeah.
So I think the numbers speaks for themselves here. I think we don't need to spend much time going over this part.
Agreed.
There's really nothing that the chart, the image doesn't say itself. This one, on the other hand, is interesting. So despite ADA's price decrease, revenue grew by 11.5% quarter over quarter. So we had a June 9th. I believe that was the SEC dropping a little bomb on Cardano, among others, dropping the price quite a bit, 25.2%.
I have one observation there. On that day, because of this very high drop in a single day, some of the DeFi platforms like the lending, they use collateral, and they had to actually do more transactions to secure more collateral to keep their loans secured. So
Yeah.
on that day, there was probably a very spike in activity, and that activity spike probably was one of the reasons why we saw increased transaction volumes. And that the fees are up, that's logical given that we have more transactions.
Yeah, I agree. And it also says the same here thing as I touched upon here. The SEC separately charged both Binance US and Coinbase in early June, and in the process alleged various crypto assets to be securities. One of the alleged assets was ADA. While there was no court ruling or clarification on ADA, some insights may be gained from SEC's case regarding XRP. A judge ruled that XRP, the token itself, is not an investment contract and thus, in and of itself, not a security. So it dropped 22.4% from 0.35 to 0.27 in 1 week. And I had a 25% drop on June 9th. So then we move over to the ecosystem. And this is where some really interesting things has been going on the last quarter. If you look at the average daily DApp transactions, it's been a major increase. Again, this comes down to what we talked about earlier with lending and memes and several big projects going live. But we did have an increase from 38.8 to 57.8, which is by far the highest number we see on this image. So by far the biggest number we've seen the last year.
It's interesting because when the values were much higher in quarter 2 2022, we had a decrease in total DApp activity, and it's been steadily increasing since quarter 4 2022. So it's really promising. As I started with in the start of this, like, I think this is a trend we will see going forward. It's not going to stop now.
Yeah, I agree. And then we see that the daily NFT transactions, they are decreasing. They've been constantly decreasing, more or less, the last year.
This one surprised me a lot, actually. I was quite surprised the NFT volume dropped this much. Maybe you have some insight on this, but for me, like, I see JPEG Store, for example, now are doing campaigns. They have in like XP that you get for doing trading activities. So clearly, they are trying to get the activity up again. But I really wonder how it fell. I don't have a good answer for it myself, actually.
No, I think the DEX activity having a lot to say with it. A lot of the NFT space, if we're honest, it is memes. It is a lot of memes. You have a lot of useful stuff as well, but there are a lot of memes and PFPs. and if the meme craze moves to the dexes, so does the NFT traders. So I think that's a big part of it. And of course, it is a bear market. It doesn't, but it's been a bear market over here as well. So that's nothing's changed from Q1 to Q2 in that regard. But that explains the low numbers compared to Q2 22. But we but yeah, I think it's more that the focus has been moved from NFTs to the dexes for at least for a while. If that's a constant or not, I cannot say anything about. I actually have no opinion on that. But yeah, I think that the focus has been on big releases, and memes especially has contributed a lot. So the focus has been shifting from NFTs to dexes, resulting in a quite big decrease. And we see that as well with the trading volume. Basically follows the same path. You have a steady decrease from $150 million trading volume down to 46 now.
Wow, look at those numbers, the TVL and in ADA in particular, and stablecoin.
Yeah.
Also.
Yes, you can talk a little bit more about that if you want.
So we basically Q2 2022 was the only down from Q2 to Q3, but apart from that, it's been growing in actual ADA locked. So from 177 to now almost a little bit more than 500 million ADA. That's a significant chunk of the total ADA in circulation, and that's locked now in DeFi. That means that it's almost like a 150% increase since Q3 2022 in DeFi space. That to me tells me the DeFi is red hot, and we have seen this in valuations of the DeFi projects. We have seen this in activity. We have seen this in the tools that have grown out of this, like tap tools now. For me, this is apart from governance that I personally think is the most exciting. But apart from that, the DeFi growth, these numbers just show it really that Cardano DeFi is here to stay, and it's growing fast, very fast. Yeah. And the same can be said about stablecoins. We have IUSD, and we had JED and Shen. And sure, the numbers are small in dollar value, but ADA dollar value is pretty low. And this is already like 60 million ADA locked up. So it's growing from a very low point, but it's definitely growing, and it's growing fairly fast as well. So will be interesting to watch stablecoin usage as well going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you have Top Protocol by TVL. I think there are some interesting things going on here as well. It's MinSwap by far all the way throughout the board. There's a steady increase, except for Q3. No, sorry, it's not steady at all. I was looking at the wrong numbers. We have 40.1 million in Q2 22, and then it went up, and then it went way down again in Q4. So it was, but then we had a huge increase again. We more than doubled the TVL on MinSwap sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. And then we got a little bit down again, but we are now at a really high level on MinSwap. And what we also can see here is that we have the dominance of MinSwap total value locked is decreasing, which means that there are, again, we comes back to decentralization.
Yeah.
It's being more spread out. And when we look at this chart, it shows the most active dApps in Q2. Well, more than Q2, but if you look at the pink one at the bottom, which is MinSwap, and then the blue above it, which is JPEG, those are the two biggest ones still. And MinSwap, the last quarter has had a massive increase. I mean, a massive increase in as the biggest, most active dApp. It actually toppled JPEG as the biggest one quarter to quarter, and is now the biggest. So and then we have stable coins, which help drive the TVL to a yearly high in Q2. This is what you talked a little bit about earlier. So it had a peak June 5th, had $183.1 million. But if we look at the TVL in ADA, it says it's never been higher. It's increasing, and it's increasing fast. So yeah, is there anything more you want to talk about? You already talked about this.
I think the one thing you brought up that I want to mention in more detail is that decentralization. So we now have more dexes doing more activity together, so not a single dex having all the dominance, and that's, for me, it's like a decentralization of trade marketplaces.
Yep.
And then we also, what I would like to see in future reports is like, how do we make sure we are spread out on stable coins and on these lending products, so that we as an ecosystem is not vulnerable in case one stable coin fails. But it's so early days for stable coins, so I think this is something we should watch maybe by next year or something like that.
Yeah. Let's see. And then we move over to staking and decentralization. And I'm going to keep my mouth shut here because I don't, this is not my forte. But I know you can talk for ages about this if you want to.
Yeah, but I see we already spent. This is a wonderful report, but I will highlight a few things.
Yeah.
So the actual number of staking pools is going down. That's important to note. And I think it's the bear market. I think it's the fact that there are less total stake. So of course, if you look at actual total stake, that's now 22.7 billion. It's competing with the 2,912 pools, and before it was 2 billion more for 20 more pools. So the competition is getting more and more cutthroat, and that means that the pools have to work very hard to produce blocks, and you can see that because we had more pools in Q1 2023 that produced one block than we have now in Q2 2023. So for me, this is actually one of the signs that I don't like to see. I would like to see some pools, more pools producing at least one block. And this is the suggestion to have K equal 1000 could potentially help with that. But in general, we see an increase in delegators total. So even if the total ADA is going down, I think mostly it's whales, and newcomers are actually buying ADA and staking to more and more pools. And that's a very good sign for decentralization, because at the heart of staking in Cardano is the delegators. They can change whoever they delegate pools to at an instant because it's liquid staking on Cardano. So they are the real holders of decentralization on Cardano. I think that's important to remember.
Yeah.
But overall, we see that the total number of pools with a high amount of stake, the 50%, that is basically an attack vector if you have more than 50% of total stake, it's actually going down. So that's not healthy. But we do see an increase when we are looking at 2/3 of stake. It's slowly going up again. But for me, like, the key takeaways here is that we should really work on these efforts to keep decentralizing, and we should also take some comfort in seeing that there's a lot of new delegators coming in and new addresses delegating to both.
Yeah. Let's see. So we also have this one. We have active stake is at a yearly low. Cardano active stake and percentage of circulating supply staked by epoch. Yeah. Is there
Guess what date
anything?
the dip was?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when the SEC announced, and some of the staking pools of the whales or the exchanges, they moved. So we see this dip, and then there was some clarity, and we see it increase a bit. And the dip from 66 to 64%, I think we can explain by the DeFi that's having more of the stake instead of stake to staking pools. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Okay, and then we can move on to, let's see, the qualitative. Yeah. So it's been happening a lot of things in the Cardano ecosystem, which they touch upon. Yeah, the CF annual report by Cardano Foundation was dropped this quarter. State of Web3 in Africa by PVC and Emergo. Cardano Summit was announced this quarter that we are hosting a local event on, by the way, in Oslo. IOG Academy was launched. They had open courses, technical guides to development with Marlo, Haskell, and Plutus. Cardano Foundation and Emergo continued to run developer educational programs. Community-run projects for education and developer tools, such as Gimbal Labs and Genius Academy, continued to produce content. IOG facilitates work groups to assist and support Cardano ecosystem developers. And last but not least, Intersect was launched with the aim of bringing members together behind a shared vision to enable a more resilient, secure, transparent, and innovative Cardano ecosystem. I would also like to add here the SIP 6094 workshops.
Yeah, I believe some of them already started in Q2. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you fully. That should
Yeah.
that's a glaring omission, actually.
Yeah. I don't. I understand why they don't include them, because it happened in Q2 and both Q1 and Q2, and it concluded now in Q3. So yeah, I can understand why they don't include it here. I just wanted to add it myself.
Yeah, for me it's such a big deal, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Dynamic P2P. Do you want to touch upon that?
So there was a node launched, and it was recommended you only use one of your relays for peer-to-peer or P2P. And this is really important for decentralization as well, because most of staking pools have been relying on a topology file that we write the different DNS or IPs that we use to communicate with each other for the safety of the network. And with
Yep.
dynamic peer-to-peer, we actually discover each other through the blockchain and through the network itself. And this is, of course, much more robust and resilient. So the fact that this is out and slowly getting moved to all of the relays and nodes is really good for decentralization of Cardano.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see, side chains. We talked about that. Should we just skip this for now? We can talk more about side chains later, just to save a little bit time. Hydra is worth mentioning. It's been happening a lot on Hydra. And also Mithril. So oh, sorry. So in March, they opened up the first head of Hydra in a limited form, and right now the protocol can be considered to be in a public beta. There are a lot of work being done on Hydra. There are a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun 10 proposals on Hydra. So I don't think we're gonna dive too deep into Hydra right now, but it's definitely something that we need to dedicate a full video on later on.
Yes, I agree. That deserves its own video.
Yeah, the same thing with Mithril. Has also just gone on mainnet. It's been about a week, I think. Week and a half.
Yeah, so and this is actually more exciting to me than Hydra, just because it's more immediately useful. So you can do snapshots that's been signed by staking pools
Yep.
and actually now on the mainnet. So you can then actually do things like having a wallet on a mobile phone that's actually fully synced and very quickly so by just getting the snapshots that's signed in the Mithril protocol. And it opens up a ton of other use cases like sidechain, voting. It can be used for so many things. So I think we will have a full video on Mithril as well. I don't do it justice by talking a few sentences about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We can we can do a much better explanation of Mithril in a dedicated video. And then to close the report, they say that new infrastructures such as stablecoin, programming languages, and wallets are helping Cardano developers create more sophisticated applications with improved UXs. During Q2, Cardano's ecosystem grew 49% quarter over quarter in DApp transactions and 10% in TVL in USD. But more importantly, the ecosystem diversified with newer protocols contributing significantly to various activity metrics. Multi-chain solutions such as Hydra and the Milkomeda C1 sidechain continues to mature and are aiming to support future activity increase, whether that be from DeFi or gaming. Development on various other sidechains and layer 2s signifies Cardano's multi-chain vision for the future, even as a usage on the base layer continues to experience growth. So that's their closing summary. Do you agree with this
Absolutely, and I would
summary?
yeah, this is a good report. We could dive into some of the details more, but like I think this is a trend that will continue. Like what they say that there's no newer protocols, and I will add to that there's newer tools like Icon for programming, and Marlow is going to come, and it's going to be huge. It's just like Lego blocks for making financial transactions and contracts. And those newer methods, all of these will generate new activity. And that's why I said I believe the trend of the DeFi apps are going to continue in the following quarters. So yes, I agree with this analytic.
Yeah, same here. I think they do lack some content that may be biased from my side, but as far as I can see, they've touched upon most of the important things. They've kept it concrete. It is a really good report, and personally, I think it looks really promising for ADA in the coming quarters. So I'm positive.
That's a good way to end this video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this was our first, hopefully, of many live streams. We're still really early here, so we're experimenting. We want to bring on guests. So if any of you want to join us for future episodes, please just contact one of us on Twitter, and we'll see if we can get you on. But this is a community channel. We do not want to. Well, we do want to be here every week and talk by all means, but we encourage all of you to join us as well, because we do not want to be the only ones talking here. We want the voices of the community to be heard. So I would appreciate it if you are not subscribed. Click the subscribe button, press the like button, and I guess we'll be back with another video in just about a week. All right, talk to you later. Bye.